much. It's lovely to be with you this evening. I hope everybody is keeping well. I just want to give you a short history of Collins. You might not know, but Collins has been publishing dictionaries for over 200 years now. Our first illustrated dictionaries were published in the 1840s, making us a lot older than some other dictionaries you might know of. Our first gem English dictionary was published in 1902, and we'll be launching a new edition of that this evening. Our first large Collins English dictionary dates from 1979, and in 1985 we published the first co-build dictionary. And the co-build dictionaries are really important because they're the dictionaries that are really led by Corpus. So the first Corpus-informed dictionary was published by Collins in 1985. Corpus is important because it's an enormous database of language, billions and billions of words. It's updated every week, every month, and it allows the Collins lexicographers to see which new words are coming into the language, to see new meanings coming into the language, to understand how words are actually being used. And the corpus allows us to make sure that our dictionaries give learners and students of English the information they need to be able to use language effectively and confidently and efficiently. So corpus is very, very important. Collins is one of the few dictionary companies in the world to still do this level of work on dictionary databases and dictionary data sets and on dictionaries that are published. And I'm really pleased that we're here this evening to launch 8 new dictionaries for schools and students and teachers in India. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you find this short webinar informative and useful. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rageshri, and I hope all of you are doing well. Welcome to the session. Long before Collins became a household name for textbooks in India, its relationship with the country began with dictionaries. That's the Collins Pocket Dictionaries. And today we have a huge range of dictionaries that help enhance a child's and an adult's vocabulary. So thank you, Dr. Higgleton, for introducing us to Collins Dictionaries. And today being the Dictionary Day, we are pleased to bring to you a range of dictionaries from the House of Collins. Some of these are new, while some are the enhanced versions of your favorite Collins dictionaries. So without further ado, let's take you to the launch. Shrikant, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Rageshri, you're visible.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us for the launch of the dictionaries. Over to you, Vidya, and please let us go to the webinar. And if there are any questions, we can definitely take it up after the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ragashri. And now, Dr. Elaine, it's all yours for the webinar. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I'd like to share my screen, so I will do that. Great. Can you see my screen? Essential dictionary skills for independent learners.
Yes, Elaine.
Lovely, thank you. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how, if we take time teaching our students dictionary skills, it can really encourage them to become independent learners who can take charge of their own language learning. And when we think about how much learning is happening virtually, how little time students are spending in the classroom at the moment under the eyes of their teacher, it is really important that we make sure they're using all of the resources that are available to them as best as they can to really maximize these resources and really make sure they're using them properly. Because if they can use their dictionaries, it can really help them learn a lot about the English language. Very many years ago, there was a slogan related to dictionaries: take your teacher home with you. And while that is very out of date now, I really want us to remember that the dictionary can be a language teacher for students. So when we think about, oh, not moving on. Sorry. It's not moving. I'm going to have to stop it and start again.
Sure.
Sorry. Right. Apologies, I don't know what's. Share this one. That's better. Great, apologies for that. So when we think about the new national education policy in India, which is a very interesting document, the Education Ministry is emphasizing conceptual understanding. So students understanding how to do things rather than learning lists of facts and figures. And the NEP is also emphasizing critical thinking to encourage logical decision making. So critical thinking being the understanding of facts and data and the understanding of how to apply those facts and that data to a real life situation to improve something or for better decision making, or for better learning and better understanding. And actually, when we think about it, these are some of the skills that we need if we're going to be using dictionaries properly. And if we practice applying these skills with dictionaries, then dictionary skills can actually help us be better ready for all of the subjects that we're studying at school, because they're helping us develop this critical thinking, this application of knowledge to logical decision making. So actually the use of dictionaries can really sit heart and centre at some of the requirements of the National Education Policy. Now, it's really important when we think about dictionaries with students that we are critical of the kinds of dictionary content students can be accessing. Not all dictionaries are equal. There are some dictionaries that are actually quite dangerous for students to use. So when we think about dictionaries today, there are 5 different ways we can access dictionary content. We can access it in print. We can access it free online. We can access, everybody can access free and very, very cheap dictionary apps that will sit on our mobile phones and on our tablets. Then there are dictionaries that sit behind an online subscription walls, and there are dictionary apps that are more expensive that we need to pay for. And I think it's really important that sitting here today, we look at, before we go on to dictionary use, we look at the pitfalls of what's free, because what's free is not reliable and not safe for our students to be using. So I just want to deal with this, and then we can move on to what makes really good dictionary content. There are two key problems with free online dictionaries, and the first one is that they might be free to us, the end user, but the dictionary company is wanting to make money out of them. So you will always find lots of unnecessary content and content that is unhelpful for students, such as ads. This is an ad from earlier in the week when I was looking at this free dictionary site. It's a gambling ad. If you click on that red icon, that red image on the right-hand side of the screen, it takes you straight to a gambling site and invites you to pay. That is not really suitable for students who need to use dictionaries to study language for schoolwork. You can also see that the other problem is that you can't actually see the dictionary content. Lots of free dictionaries, lots of free online dictionaries have what we call very thin content. They'll give you the head word, they'll give you a handful of definitions, they'll give you an audio file. That's it. That's very thin content. That content isn't very helpful for our students who need more information, corpus-led information about how the language is used. But you can see that not only is the content thin, but it's actually quite hard to see. This is the screen on a dictionary for free, and you can see we've got a big ad for some cream for your feet, and we've got a quiz, and we've got a link to a grammar checker, but we can't actually see very much information about the word free. Here's just another example. This is the next screen down. So I scrolled down to see, okay, I'm going to page down. What do I get next? Not a lot of dictionary content. And the other thing we need to be very careful of is because it's free online, and because it's online doesn't mean it's up to date. So take a minute to have a look at this entry. Use the chat box to tell me what's missing. There's a very, very common contemporary use of swipe that is not in this free online dictionary because it's not kept up to date. Don't believe because it's up to date that it's contemporary, that it's just don't believe because it's online that it's up to date. What's missing? Can anybody spot that? Shrikant, is anybody using the chat box to give me ideas as to what's missing?
Sure, Dr. Elaine. I'm waiting for responses both on Zoom as well as on Facebook. So, waiting responses on Zoom first.
Look what it's telling us. Sense number 1, hit hard with a sweeping blow. Sense number 2, slang, to steal. Sense number 3, banking and finance, to pass a machine-readable card, such as a credit card, debit card, through a machine. What's missing from those verb uses? Let me show you. What about this? We do it every day with our mobile phones. We swipe the screen of our mobile phone. That contemporary use isn't given to us by some of the online dictionaries because they're not kept up to date. As I say, don't think because it's online that it's automatically up to date. You'll be very pleased to know that this sense of swipe is covered in the new dictionaries that we're launching this evening. Free online thesauruses are no better. We're going to be looking at thesauruses a little bit later. We're going to be looking at dictionaries for active vocabulary learning. And an online thesaurus will serve you lots and lots of synonyms, but it makes no attempt to help you use those synonyms. So if we look at here at these synonyms for nice, the first one is cordial, and that's not really a very suitable synonym for students. And the next one is ducky, which to me is extremely old-fashioned. But the information is just presented because it's free online. It's just given to you in alphabetical order with no guidance on which might be the most appropriate. So the content is dangerous for our students. And don't be misled by fancy presentation. This is no more helpful. If we look at nice and we come out to let's come down to likable. We've got prepossessing. That is not a very good synonym for students without any extra help. And the free apps are also extremely problematic. And I couldn't believe this earlier this week when I was preparing this talk. I thought, right, I've got a free app on my iPad. I'll have a look at it and just remind myself how bad it is. And can you believe I tapped on the icon, and this is what it gave me. Imagine if I'd given it to my 10-year-old daughter and said, look it up in this app, and she'd clicked on that icon, and this is the first thing it gave her. These apps are really not suitable for use with young learners, and this is a completely free app. You can see that's not the first thing I would want my student or my child to see when I open up the app on my iPad to look up a word. This is not the kind of content that we should be serving up to children and students without any filtering. So I think some of this stuff that's free, available as free apps and free online, is really not helpful. It gives us content that is inappropriate and ads that are unhelpful. And as you can see, looking at swipe in this free dictionary app, to strike with a swiping motion, or to steal, to pilfer. And that's a list of very unhelpful synonyms there. So these because it's free doesn't mean it's any good. So we really need to be aware that we get what we pay for with dictionaries, and that if we want proper dictionary content that students can learn from actively, we're going to have to use something that we're going to have to pay for. Right, I've done a lot of talking. Your turn. Use the chat box to type in some ideas for what we use a dictionary for.
Looking for answers.
So, let's just take a couple of minutes to.
Yes, sure.
A couple of minutes to do that. You all know this. Just type them in.
So, okay, we are getting certain responses over here. First
Great.
is from Ms. Vedya, to know meanings and usages of words.
Yeah, meanings, great. Usage, great.
Usage. Next one, the first answer from Facebook is learning. We get to learn new things using a dictionary.
Yeah, okay.
Parts of
What
speech.
else?
Parts of speech.
Yes, parts of speech.
Meaning, pronunciation, and opposition. Synonyms.
Synonyms.
Learning word meanings. Again, a lot of to know the meaning and to assimilate the content.
Okay,
Forms
great.
of words, pronunciation.
Okay, that's great. And obviously, you know, we check our spellings in dictionaries. Perhaps not so much now. Check those online. So this is just my list of what we use dictionaries for: to look up meanings, to look up spellings and the forms of words, to find out what noun plurals are, what the form of a verb might be if it's an irregular verb. We look up parts of speech, help with pronunciation, examples, usage and grammar, help with correcting mistakes in our written work, building vocabulary, learning new words, including synonyms and antonyms. I'm not going to spend very much time on the things in blue this morning. If your students need advice on using their dictionaries, if they're sitting at home and they've got a dictionary at home, let's not forget that every dictionary publisher puts in a couple of pages of guidance on how to use the dictionaries, which can be helpful. But I'd also encourage you to go to the harpercollins.co.in home learning site, where if you click on the Junior Dictionary, the Primary Illustrated Dictionary, the Essential School Dictionary, the Co-Build Learner's Illustrated Dictionary, and the new Primary Thesaurus, you will find packs of activity sheets that will take you through the basic use of dictionaries. So get your students to do these activity sheets. These will help them understand how to look up meaning, how to look up spelling. Will help them understand alphabetical order, how to look words up in the right place. We'll help them link spelling and sound. We'll help them learn the basics of how to use their dictionaries and their thesauruses. So I'm not going to cover the basics this morning. What I really want to focus on for you, I know it's this evening, what I really want to focus on is the 2 points in red. How we can use a dictionary in an active way with usage and grammar to help us work out where we've made a mistake in our written work, to help us engage and actively learn from the dictionary content to allow us to correct the mistake. So we read the information in the dictionary, we think about it critically, we apply it, and we improve our own English. So dictionaries for active learning to using logical decision making. And the second thing I want to look at is using dictionaries in an active way to build vocabulary. We often use dictionaries in a very passive way. We look up a piece of information, we find it, we shut the dictionary. How can we encourage students to use the dictionary in a very active way to find and learn new synonyms and antonyms and to build their vocabulary? And vocabulary skills are important because obviously it helps with creative writing. And for those of you that are trying to teach students how to understand implied meaning, then one of the biggest clues we have is the author's choice of vocabulary. How does the author's choice of vocabulary help us understand implied meaning and inferred meaning and inference? So I really want us to look at these two things because these are harder, these take time, but this is where students really become independent learners and where that dictionary sitting on their desk at home, when they're working at home and they're not in the school classroom, this is where these dictionaries really help out. Right. So, first example. The first thing we as teachers need to be aware of is how we mark up mistakes in students' writing. So this is a very common mistake. It's common in India, but it is common in other parts of the world as well, that students think cope is a phrasal verb with the preposition up. So the student has written, students must cope up with stress. The teacher has crossed through up. That is not a helpful way of marking up an error for a student. What we need to do is we need to circle the phrases or the words that are involved in the mistake. So we can say to the student, I want you to think about what you've written here. We're looking at cope up. And we underline for the student the word they have to look up in the dictionary. If you just circle it, the student might be a bit confused as to where to look. So we need initially to help the student understand what they're looking at. So they need to look at the entry for cope. This is our entry for cope from the New Primary Illustrated Dictionary. And I'm going to talk you through this. We say to the student, read the definition. So the student reads the definition. We have to say to the student, you've really got to look up the wording in the definition. What's the wording? Is the word up used in that definition? No, it isn't. Now we look at the example sentence and we read that. I managed to cope with my homework. What is the structure that we see after cope? Is the word up there? No, it isn't. So we say to the student, read the definition. Is the word up there? No, it's not. Read the example. Is the word up there? No, it's not. That's the information. We now need to think logically about that. So what does that mean? The dictionary doesn't have the word up in it, means up isn't needed. So therefore, the correction that we're encouraging the student to understand and to make is to write, students must cope with stress. Step by step, read the definition, really engage with what is there and what isn't there. Do the same with the example sentence, then understand that up isn't there and apply that information in a logical way to correct our own mistake, step by step. Next one. Okay, I know this is difficult to do interactively, so I'll talk you through this one. And then I'm going to ask you to do the next one yourselves and to give me information in the chat box. This again is another very common mistake, not just in India, all over the world. Students will say, we discussed about the weather for hours. There's a mistake here. We underline discuss because we want that's the entry for students to look up. We circle discuss about because that's where the mistake is. And we send our students to their dictionary. In this case, it's not a full sentence definition. So the helpful information is in the example sentence. We are meeting next week to discuss plans for the future. The student needs to read that to see what's missing. What's missing is the preposition about, and to interpret the fact there is no preposition as meaning there is no preposition needed. So therefore, this sentence should be, they discussed the weather for hours. So we're encouraging students to build things up step by step, reading the information, looking at it critically and applying it to their own writing. Okay, in the Essential School Dictionary, because this is such a common problem, we've also got a usage note about this. I want you to do this one for me. This is emphasize on, which is another common problem. And again, we don't need on. We know it should be, he emphasized collaborative learning. What I want you to do is to identify the 3 bits of information in this dictionary entry that tell us that we do not need the word on. Take a minute and use the chat box. 2 will be easy. You'll have to look for the 3rd one. Are we getting any answers, Shrikant?
Looking for answers, Elaine.
Great.
Both on Facebook and on Zoom. Waiting
Great.
for people to type.
Great. You can see that this entry is from the new edition of the Learner's Illustrated Dictionary. This dictionary is a fabulous dictionary for students in grade 5 and 6 upwards. It is full of really helpful information about how English is used to help students avoid these kinds of mistakes and to learn English very actively. Any answers yet, Shrikant?
Still waiting. Not yet.
Okay, well, the first answer is obviously the example sentence. You should emphasize your skills. There is no on in that example sentence because we do not need one. That is the first piece of information that tells us the sentence should be, he emphasized collaborative learning. The second piece of information is the form of the definition. This dictionary uses full sentences to emphasize something. We're not saying to emphasize on something, we're saying to emphasize something. That's the second bit of information that tells us we don't need on. And the third bit of information, no answers, Shrikant, still?
One is, right now I've just got one answer from Facebook, which is from Ms. Jaya. She says to indicate, to draw attention to.
That's the meaning.
That's the meaning, yes.
What I'm looking for is the other clue to the fact we don't need on in this sentence. Well, the other clue is that part of speech label. VT emphasizes a transitive verb and it's followed by a direct object. It's not a phrasal verb. It doesn't need a prepositional phrase. So there are 3 things in that dictionary entry that tell us our sentence should be, he emphasized collaborative learning. The part of speech label, which says it's a transitive verb, and we all know transitive verbs take direct objects. The full sentence definition, to emphasize something, we don't write to emphasize on something, on isn't needed. And the third thing is the example sentence. You should emphasize your skills. So we get our students to read and to really actively understand what this information is telling us. And it's telling us we don't need on, and then we apply that to correct the example sentence. Okay, have a look at this one. I want you to identify the error with "she grilled on the barbecue," and I want you to tell me which part of these dictionary entries you can choose. You can either use the Junior Illustrated or you can use the Essential School Dictionary. What in the dictionary entries tells us what the mistake is? Let's have a go at this one. This is a bit easier than emphasize on.
Okay.
Use the chat box.
Looking for answers both on Zoom and on Facebook. Waiting for them to key in their answers. So. On should be omitted. Object is missing. These are various answers that I'm getting here.
Okay, so
Ms. Vidya says grilled what?
Grilled what?
What?
Thank you, Miss Vidya. Grilled what? And Miss Vidya, what part of the dictionary entry allows you to identify that we have to grill something? Which part of the dictionary entry tells us that? Because I know you know that. What we want is we want our students to learn to use the dictionary to find that out for themselves. Which part of the dictionary entry tells us?
On Facebook, we are getting quite a few.
Okay, great. What are people saying on Facebook? She grilled on the barbecue means she lay down on the barbecue and grilled her body. And that's not what this sentence is supposed to mean. This sentence is supposed to apply to a way of cooking food. Have we had any answers, Shrikant, before I show the answers? Any answers? Okay, look at this. In the Junior Illustrated Dictionary, the definition clearly shows that grill is a transitive verb that needs a direct object. You have to grill something. You have to grill an item of food. Chicken, fish, a sandwich. If you grill food. Look at the Essential School Dictionary. Again, we have if you grill food in the definition, showing that this is a transitive verb that needs a direct object. And then look at the example. We grilled the chicken on the barbecue. It's very hard with webinars. When I do this in workshops, I can see how people are getting on, and I can't really see how you're all getting on with this. I suspect you're finding this quite hard. I know you know what the mistake is in grilled. She grilled on the barbecue. What we want to do is to help our students understand how to use the dictionary to stop them making mistakes like that themselves and to correct their own mistakes. Give me a correction for that sentence. Somebody type me a nice correction for that sentence.
She grilled chicken on the barbecue is what
Great.
Maria.
That's right. That's absolutely right. But what we're doing here is we're using our dictionaries to identify that mistake. Let's do the next one. Well, actually, I've got in the Learner's Illustrated Dictionary, you've got even more information because we've got the transitive labeling as well as the definition in full sentence. If you grill food, an example, grilled chicken, we've also got a transitivity label, which is our big clue. Transitive verbs take direct objects. Right. I know you know what the problem is here. I know you know this mistake. What I want you to do is, using the chat box, tell me which part of the dictionary entry allows us to identify this mistake. This is what we want our students to do. If you just correct that, your students will never learn. They'll never learn how to look at information in a dictionary and apply it to their own language. They'll never learn how to be independent learners. They'll be dependent on you to correct language. Did you know, if you teach in a Cambridge school and you're teaching IGCSE English, one of the biggest things holding back a good mark is silly mistakes like this. Examiners mark them wrong. So we need students to be independent learners and take charge of their own learning. Have we got any answers, Shrikant? Which parts of the dictionary entry?
I'm just waiting for the answers. Elaine.
Great.
Okay, there's an answer that's come in the Facebook, which says from Miss Anjali Vaz, countable noun entry, and then Shubha ma'am says, in meaning objects is given indicating furniture is a plural word. Lots is already significant of plural, says Miss Christine on Facebook.
Okay, no, that's not the answer we're looking for, Miss Christine on Facebook. Good try, but not lots. That's not the answer. We're looking at the entry for furniture.
Jaya ma'am says, doesn't have a plural. It's already a collection.
Great. How do we know, Miss Jaya, you're absolutely right. How do we know it doesn't have a plural from the dictionary entry?
There's an answer that's coming from Miss Parvati Gopakumar. She says it's an uncountable noun and it says n uncount.
It says n uncount. That's right. That's one piece of information in the Co-Build dictionary that tells us this doesn't have a plural. What else tells us that this doesn't have a plural?
On Dr. Elaine, we have answers coming on chat.
Yeah.
On Zoom, Ms. Upasana De says furniture works as a collective noun itself.
Yes, we know that. We know it's an uncountable noun and it doesn't, and the noun, the uncount label tells us it doesn't have a plural. What else tells us it doesn't have a plural?
Subhashine ma'am says on Facebook that it should be furniture since the meaning has plural words to describe it.
What else in the dictionary entry tells us that the word furnitures is wrong? The uncount label, yes, but there's no uncount label in Junior Illustrated. So what is it in that entry that tells us you cannot have the word furnitures?
There's one answer which says furniture includes tables, chairs. That's the
okay.
And Ms. Paildas, Dr. Elaine, Ms. Paildas says furniture is large objects in the definition.
Yeah, that's the definition. That doesn't tell us about the usage. The clues to the usage in this dictionary entry, the Co-Build dictionary entry, are first of all, remember what we said at the beginning, that you can look up spellings in a dictionary and that you can look up plural forms in a dictionary and forms of verbs in a dictionary. There's no plural shown. We do not show the form furnitures because it doesn't exist. So the first thing to read is that green arrow. What's missing is the plural form. There is no plural form. In the Junior Illustrated dictionary, if there was a plural form allowed, we would be showing it. The dictionary entry for man would read man, comma, men, showing the plural. If a plural doesn't exist, it's not given in the dictionary. That's the first obvious clue. It just isn't there. Then we say it's uncountable. Then the definition, the form of the word in the definition is as an uncountable noun. Furniture consists of, and then we look at the example. We don't look at the meaning. The meaning is different. The meaning doesn't give us the usage. Let me ask you this. The word star, grammatically, what is the grammatical use of the noun star? Is it a countable noun or is it an uncountable noun? Thinking about the grammar. Use the chat box to tell me the answer.
Looking for answers both on Facebook and on Zoom. Grammar countable.
Yes. Anybody else?
Uncountable. The first answer from Facebook says uncountable. The second one says countable.
Okay.
Here too we have countable as the second answer on Zoom.
Okay.
On Facebook again uncountable.
Okay.
And countable.
Thank
So
you.
it's a mixed opinion.
It's a mix. It's a mix. The noun star is countable. Grammatically, it's a countable noun. It can have a plural ending in S, and it can be used as a countable noun. The meaning, there are more stars in the sky than we can count, therefore stars are uncountable. That's meaning. That's not grammar. We need to be really careful to separate meaning from grammar. So furniture does mean a number of objects, tables, chairs, beds. Furniture means a number of objects. It has a meaning that encompasses plurality, but grammatically it's an uncountable noun. That's its grammar. So it's very important that we separate the grammatical function of a word from its meaning. Star is a countable noun, has nothing to do with the number of stars in the sky. It's a countable noun. Okay, great. This one is going to be hard, so we will skip that one. I'm going to give you this as a post-webinar activity. This is from a student essay on the problems with drugs in society, the dangers of drugs in society. And we have a post-webinar activity to send out, and you'll be given this to look at. We're also going to be sending you out the dictionary entries for all of the words that are underlined to allow you to do this. And we do have an answer sheet, but we want to receive as many exercises from you as you feel happy to do. So have a go at this. You can do it yourselves. You can give it to your students if you want to. You're advanced students. I wouldn't give this to young children. Maybe try giving it to students in grades 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. See what they make of it, and have a go at it yourself. I want you to correct these mistakes using the dictionary. I don't just want the corrections. I want you to demonstrate that you can use and interpret the information in the dictionary to correct these mistakes. Okay, so you can see that, let's go back to this. If we look at the dictionary entry logically, and we really read, understand, and engage with the information that the dictionary is giving us, and we then interpret and apply that information, the information the dictionary is giving us, we can then apply that information to our own writing and realize that furniture, for example, doesn't have a plural form ending in S. Therefore, that sentence must read, the room has lots of furniture. And this must read, she grilled food on the barbecue. She grilled chicken, she grilled fish on the barbecue. And this must read, he emphasized collaborative learning. If we're using the information in the dictionary in a logical way and applying it to our own writing. Great, and a practice exercise for you all to get stuck into afterwards. I'm now going to have a look at how we can use a dictionary in a very active way to build vocabulary. And varied vocabulary is important. Examiners like to see varied vocabulary in creative writing. Students often need to be able to paraphrase something that a text they've been given in an exam. And students often have to be able to read to understand implied meaning, the author's intention. So students need to be able to understand connotations of words and not just meanings of words. There are lots of lovely features in our new dictionaries that all help vocabulary building in a simple way with young students. Lots of nice illustrations, nice things in supplements, labelled illustrations, labelled diagrams. We've got some synonyms and antonyms in our low-level dictionaries, in our co-build dictionary. We have lots of collocations, we have illustrations showing parts of, we have illustrations that show different types of, as you can see with different types of bag, and we have readings that give vocabulary and context. What I really want us to be thinking about today is using the dictionary to learn more about connotation and how words are different. Do these three words all mean the same? Just vote yes or no using the chat box, and yes or no if you're joining us from Facebook. Do these words all mean the same?
Waiting for the answers to be keyed in. So
no. Yes or
No.
Anybody saying yes?
No one, as of now, yes.
Okay. They've all got a very similar meaning in that they describe something that is of considerable size, but their connotations are different. Gigantic is the biggest. Big is a considerable size. Enormous is larger than big, and gigantic is bigger still. So while they all operate with a similar meaning, they have very different connotation. Have a look at this dictionary. This is a bit of free online thesaurus. Look how unhelpful this is. Find me an alternative word for nice in this sense with that picture from that entry. Have a quick look through. What does it give us? Let me move my box and I'll read them out. It gives us pleasing, agreeable, delightful, amiably pleasant, kind. No, that doesn't apply to cake. What else have we got? Minute, fine or subtle, nice people, virtuous, respectable, decorous, suitable or proper, carefully neat. Oh, a food, dainty or delicate. Would either dainty or delicate apply to that? No, not really. Are we getting any answers? Shrikant. Any answers? There are no synonyms for nice in that sense, in that bit of a thesaurus and dictionary entry. It just doesn't give us any. So we do need to be very careful with online. Look at these words. This is slim, and this relates to the first sense. A slim person has a thin, nicely shaped body. And the synonyms the dictionary gives us are thin, slender, slight, and lean. What do we notice about them? They're not perfect synonyms. What might we notice about them?
Waiting for answers, Dr. Elaine. For the earlier one about the cake, we have a few answers on Facebook where they say that my grandma baked a delicious cake.
Yeah, that's great. And that wasn't one of the options available to you online, but delicious is a good one.
And then there's another one. There's Miss Monica who says sumptuous. There's Miss Isha who says mouth-watering.
Yeah, those are great, but they weren't available to you in that online dictionary entry. We're really looking at what these dictionaries are serving up to us. Has anybody noticed anything about these words? Thin, slender, slight, lean.
Waiting for answers. They are variations in sizes. They are all to do with the physical appearance of the person, says Miss Anjali Vas.
Yeah, that's great. Let's look at the words.
Variations.
Sorry?
Miss Honey says it's variations in sizes. And then on Zoom, we have Miss Richa Sharma who says it speaks about the build of the person.
It does speak about the build. But look at all of these definitions. We wouldn't want to use, it's dangerous to just use those synonyms as they're presented in the dictionary. We really want to look at the definitions. So when we look at slight, a slight person has a slim and delicate body. When we look at slender, we read a slender person is thin and graceful in an attractive way. When we look at lean, a lean person is thin but looks strong and fit. And if something is thin, a thin person or animal has no extra fat on their body. Words that are missing from that synonyms box include bony and gaunt. What we would say about all of these synonyms is that they are all positive. They all make a positive statement about somebody. They are not negative. We're saying that when we use these words, we're associating their appearance with being attractive and pleasing. We're not saying that they are too thin or that they look unhealthily thin. So this is why we need to be using our dictionaries to build up synonyms, because the connotation of all of these words is very positive. If we put words into these sentences, he works out a lot and is very lean. That's positive. If we're an author and we're saying that, we're saying, I approve of his appearance by using the word lean. She was slender with delicate wrists and ankles. I approve of her appearance. She has a slight build, but is really quite strong. I approve of her appearance. He is small and very thin and has pale white skin. I'm not disapproving. I'm feeling quite negative. I'm feeling quite neutral about it. But if we put these synonyms in, what happens to the connotation? He works out a lot and is very gaunt. Is that positive? Do I approve of his appearance when I say he works out a lot and is very gaunt? I'm using a synonym for slim. Am I saying I approve of his appearance?
Ms. Richa Sharma and Ms. Upasana say no. And no. On Facebook as well, there are quite many no's coming in.
Absolutely, because the connotation is different. The words lanky, gaunt, bony, spare operate in the same semantic space as slight, lean, slender, and thin. They all mean not a lot of flesh on the body, but some of them mean I approve, some of them mean I don't approve. That's connotation. That's the kind of thing we need to be using our dictionaries to really understand. If an author writes, she has a bony build, but is really quite strong, that is a different implication to she has a slim build, but is really quite strong. The author is giving us a different impression of that person. So connotation is very important. And this is where we need to be working with our students and dictionaries to actively build up vocabulary skills. So we say, look in your dictionary, what's the synonym given? Now look up that synonym. What else is that synonym telling us? Is it positive? Is it negative? What else do we notice about slender? Before we move on, before we come on to a few minutes for questions, does anybody notice anything else about slender? Look at the examples. She was slender with delicate wrists and ankles. A tall, slender woman. Her long, slender legs. What else do we notice about slender? What's the other connotation that is very important for slender?
We have an answer on Zoom from Ms. Bindu. She says
yes.
It's weak.
It's
weak.
No.
We have another answer on Facebook from Subhashine. Ma'am says, graceful and attractive. And it has Miss Juma says it has a feminine connotation.
Yes, it has a feminine connotation. Absolutely brilliant. That's exactly what I was wanting you to say. Slender tends to be used of women and girls. It tends not to be used of men. So you can see your dictionary is telling you this. It's giving us really valuable information about how words are used. If we can only really look at the information, engage with it, and think about it, and then apply it. It gives us masses of really valuable information. So if we were going to do an activity on this with these words in the classroom, we'd want to say not only a slight, lean, slender, and thin, positive, you're giving a positive message when you use those words, and that you're giving a negative message when you use lanky, gaunt, bony, spare, a disapproving message. We also want to say slender tends to be used of women and girls. There's another word, gangling, that tends to be used of girls only when they're young. There's lots and lots of very valuable information in our dictionaries for building really strong vocabulary skills. And when you think about it, and we're teaching students to read for implied meaning, there's an enormous difference in the implications between he works out a lot and is very lean, and he works out a lot and is very gaunt. The author, through choice of that word, is giving a very strong impression of what that person is like. And that's where vocabulary helps with implied meaning. And again, don't rely on free online. It's just not helpful. This Thesaurus entry gives slender, lean, willowy, sylph-like, svelte, lissome, graceful. They're all fairly positive. Snake-hipped, that's very, very specialist. That is in the wrong place. That should not be linked with lean, willowy, sylph-like, and svelte. So we need to be very, very careful with our students to be using good, reliable, student-facing dictionary content. This is going to be your next post-webinar activity. And again, we're going to give you the relevant page from the new Collins Primary Thesaurus. And this is a really nice activity for you to give to your students, but also to have a go at yourself. Students often use the word nice. It's very overused. They use it too much. In their creative writing, we want them to be a lot more creative. So we're going to get them to use, and I'd like you to do this, use the Thesaurus page to put in, to actively learn, look up and put in some suitable alternatives that are much more descriptive. So two key things I want you to take away. If we really, really look at our dictionary entries, if we actively read and engage with the information in the dictionaries, notice what the dictionary is telling us. Really look at the information that is there. What isn't there? What is there? What's the dictionary saying? And then apply that information. It's a very valuable tool for helping us make corrections to mistakes in usage and grammar. And that if we look at the synonyms offered, really read the definitions and example, notice the other words used, think about what this is telling us. It can help us realize that while words have similar meanings, they have different connotations. And then we can therefore use the power of these different connotations in our creative writing and when we are reading to infer, when we're reading for implied meaning. These are the 5 dictionaries and thesauruses that are really schools facing that I would encourage you all to have a look at. I believe we've got online samples that might be available. Contact the Collins India marketing team, and there are free dictionary worksheets and activities for all of these. In the last couple of minutes, are there any questions?
Looking for a few questions, Dr. Elaine. Thank you so much for that wonderful insight that we all received on how we could actually look for a lot of details from dictionaries. We have a lot of comments on Facebook coming in, which says, wonderful time, session was really useful. Very nice session, ma'am. We had a great time knowing it. And there's one coming from Zoom from Mr. Tariq saying, thanks, Dr. Elaine. So do we have any questions for Dr. Elaine? There's quite a lot of wonderful comments. Ms. Garima asks, is it right for me to say that I had a joyful time attending this session?
That's fine. You can say you had a joyful time. I personally would say I had an enjoyable time, but if you want to use joyful, I think that's okay.
We have one question from Ms. Gitanjali Shivakumar, who would like to know, how do we get the children to be aware of the root word? The root of the word.
Well, there are some activities in some of the dictionary sheets that we provide. The primary illustrated dictionary has a supplement on prefixes and suffixes, which you might find helpful. If you want, in the Co-Build Learners Illustrated Dictionary, there are entries on some of the combining forms that are used commonly in English to make lots of words like aqua and aero and milli. And then if you look in all of the dictionaries will give you the inflected forms, the different morphological forms that can be derived from a root word. So if you look up furniture, you will see there is no furnitures, that you can't use that. If you look up the word cry, C-R-Y, it will give you all of the morphological forms of the word, and then following on from that entry, depending on the dictionary, you'll get other forms that you might find. You could look up a word like happy, and you'll find that you're given happiness as a derived form. You need to be working with the dictionary activities and worksheets with students and with dictionaries, but using those dictionary activities and worksheets to really get them looking at the dictionary content. You've really got to get them doing it. It's got to be an active learning thing. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Elaine. There's another question from Ms. Upasana De. She would like to know, could you kindly elaborate on the difference between confronted to and confronted with?
I'm sorry, confronted
to, T-O, confronted
to,
with.
Confronted with. Well, confronted, we don't use to as a preposition after confront. You're either confronted by something or you're confronted with something. I would never say confronted to. Right. I don't think to is a preposition that we can have after confront. You're confronted with a problem, or you're maybe confronted by a whole host of problems. So I would have by or with after confront.
Okay, so Ms. Upasana, I guess that's the answer for you. And there's one final question. Could we take one last question? Is that okay?
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
All right. How to motivate children to use dictionary because they normally avoid it?
I think we have to lead from the front, and I think we have to use dictionaries ourselves as teachers. And I think we have to get students doing all of the dictionary activities and exercises that Collins provides for the different dictionaries. I think you've got to set them as homework. You've got to expect that students will do those activity sheets and exercise sheets. And you need to set students activities that allow them and empower them to use the dictionary. So when they're doing some creative writing and they've used the word nice, don't correct it for them. Don't say, I want you to, don't give them other words to use. Make them look for other words to use. When a student has made a mistake in some writing, circle it. Tell them which dictionary entry to look up. Don't correct it for them. Make them go and look at the dictionary. It comes from us. We have to lead. We have to have the expectation that that's what students will do. And the more you do it, then they'll start to become familiar. It will become a habit. So be very careful when you correct it. The parents might say, your principal might say, you haven't written the corrections on. Don't write the corrections on. Circle the mistakes. Make them look the corrections up themselves. Make them go and find the correction. This is why I'm very keen that you do the webinar activity. So you as teachers learn to do exactly the same process. What's in the dictionary entry? What's that telling me? How do I apply it? Oh, I'll apply it. Oh, that's a mistake. This is what it should be. That we need to get them doing that. You have to do that by circling mistakes, making them look in the dictionary, making them make their own corrections.
Thank you for that. And just as a concluding question, I would just take this. Any comments on using the Collins Online Dictionary and Thesaurus, please?
I think it's fine to use if you're an adult and if your students are 18, 17, 18, but you shouldn't really be using it with younger students because it is a free site. And while the content on that dictionary site is very good, it's going to serve you up dictionary ads that are going to be inappropriate for students. And also that dictionary is a dictionary of record, so it has every word in the English language in it. And you might feel that some of those words are inappropriate for younger children. You might not want them to be exposed to some of the vocabulary that's in the online dictionary. But for you as adults and teachers and for 18-year-old students, it's okay, but not for younger students, because of all of those adverts on the site, which are inappropriate. And because, as I say, it's a dictionary of record and it's got every word in it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elaine. Thank you very much for that. I totally understand that we have a paucity of time here. So thank you very much for this webinar. And it was totally enlightening to know that Collins Dictionary has got so much for all of us educators out here. Thank you for this wonderful session. Thank you all for attending this. And on behalf of Collins and HarperCollins, thank you and have a wonderful day. And please do stay safe, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.